Something profoundly troubling that I've observed in our generation. We have more tools, more technology, more access to information than any generation before us. Yet we are the most distracted, the most unfocused, and perhaps the most unfulfilled. I want you to think about yesterday, just yesterday. Can you account for every hour? Can you tell me what you accomplished between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m.? Most people cannot. And this is not a minor problem. This is the crisis of our age. There was a young man I encountered some years ago. Brilliant mind, sharp, articulate, could discuss philosophy, theology, quantum physics with equal ease. But his life was falling apart. His business had collapsed. His relationships were in shambles. His health was deteriorating. When I sat with him, I asked him one question. Show me your typical day. He literally could not map out how he spent his time. He would wake up whenever his body decided to wake up. He would scroll through his phone for hours. He would respond to messages randomly. He would eat at irregular intervals. He would walk in bursts of anxiety-driven energy. And then he would collapse into bed, exhausted, having accomplished almost nothing of lasting value. This young man had a genius-level intellect, but he was living like someone who had no vision, no purpose, no mastery over the most fundamental resource given to every human being, time. Now, before you distance yourself from this story, thinking that's not me, I want you to be honest with yourself. How different are you, really? Maybe you wake up with an alarm. Maybe you have a job that forces some structure on your day. But be honest, are you mastering your 24 hours or are your 24 hours mastering you? The difference between people who leave a legacy and people who leave nothing but regrets is not intelligence, it's not talent, it's not even opportunity. The difference is mastery. Mastery over time. Mastery over attention. Mastery over energy. And this mastery begins with understanding something most people never grasp. Your 24 hours are not neutral. They are either being invested or being wasted. There is no third category. Let me tell you about another man. This one lived in the 15th century. His name was Leonardo. Not just an artist, though his paintings would become priceless. Not just an inventor, though his designs were centuries ahead of his time. Not just a scientist, though his observations would influence fields of study that didn't even exist in his lifetime. Leonardo da Vinci was obsessed with time. His notebooks reveal something extraordinary. He scheduled every hour, not just work hours, every hour. He had specific times for studying light and shadow, specific times for dissecting cadavers to understand human anatomy, specific times for engineering designs, specific times for painting, specific times for rest, specific times for walking in nature, to observe birds and water flow. People called him a genius, but what made him a genius wasn't just his brain, it was his brutal discipline over his time. He understood that genius is not just about having great thoughts. Genius is about creating systems that allow those thoughts to materialize into reality. You see, most people think genius is this mystical quality that some people are born with and others are not. That's a comfortable lie we tell ourselves. It absolves us of responsibility. I'm just not that smart. I'm just not that talented. I'm just not that gifted. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. You have the same 24 hours that every genius who ever lived had. The question is not whether you have enough time. The question is whether you have enough discipline. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I have responsibilities. I have a job. I have a family. I have obligations. Yes. And so did Leonardo. So did every person who ever accomplished anything significant. The issue is not your circumstances. The issue is your approach to your circumstances. Let me break this down in a way that might disturb you, but I pray to also awaken you. There are 168 hours in a week. Let's say you sleep 8 hours a night. That's 56 hours gone. You have 112 hours left. Let's say you work a demanding job, 50 hours a week, including commute. You have 62 hours left. Let's say you spend 2 hours a day on meals and personal care. That's 14 hours. You have 48 hours left. That's nearly 2 full days. Every single week that you have control over. 2 days. What are you doing with them? Be honest. Scrolling, watching content that adds no value to your life, engaging in conversations that lead nowhere, worrying about things you cannot control, complaining about your situation while doing nothing to change it. You see, the tragedy is not that we don't have time. The tragedy is that we waste the time we have and then complain that we don't have enough. This is not wisdom. This is self-deception. I want to take you deeper into this reality. Time operates on a principle that most people never understand. It compounds. Just like money in an investment account, how you use your time today determines what options you have tomorrow. If you waste today, you don't just lose today, you lose the compounded benefits that today's wise investments would have produced. There was a trader I knew, started with nothing, absolutely nothing, lived in a single room with 6 other people, but this man understood compound time. Every morning before his housemates woke up, he would study, not randomly, systematically. He gave himself a curriculum, financial markets, economic theory, psychology of trading, risk management. He did this for 2 years, 2 hours every single morning before the chaos of the day began. Most people in his situation were sleeping during those hours, or they were complaining about their situation, or they were waiting for an opportunity to appear. But this man was creating his opportunity through the disciplined investment of his time. After 2 years, he didn't just know more than his peers. He knew more than people who had been in the industry for a decade. Why? Because while they were using their knowledge casually, he was building it systematically. When the opportunity finally came, he was ready, not lucky, ready. And readiness is what happens when preparation meets time discipline. Today, that man manages a portfolio worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. People call him lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. Discipline did. This is what I need you to understand. Your future self is being created right now, not tomorrow, right now. The person you will be 5 years from now is being shaped by what you do with your time today. And most people are creating a future they don't want because they are living a present they haven't thought through. Now, let's get practical, because philosophy without application is just noise. How do you actually master your 24 hours? Not in theory, but in reality. First, you must accept a hard truth. Not every hour is equal. There are hours when your mental clarity is sharp. There are hours when your creativity flows. There are hours when your body has peak energy. And there are hours when all of these are diminished. Most people treat all hours the same. They use their peak mental hours scrolling or attending to trivial matters, and then they try to do deep, important work when they are exhausted. This is backwards. This is foolish. I learned this principle from observing a surgeon. He would not schedule complex surgeries in the afternoon. Never. Why? Because his research showed that his cognitive performance was measurably lower after 2 p.m. His hands were steady, yes, but his decision making, his spatial awareness, his ability to anticipate complications, all of this peaked between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. So he built his entire practice around this reality. The most complex cases got his best hours. Administrative work, consultations, reviews, this got his lower energy hours. This man wasn't just a good surgeon. He became one of the most successful surgeons in his field because he understood something profound. Mastery is not about working harder. It's about working strategically. You need to map your energy. Actually map it. For 1 week, pay attention to when you feel most alert, most creative, most focused. Write it down. Most people discover they have a golden window, usually in the morning, sometimes in the evening, when their cognitive capacity is at its peak. This is sacred time. This is when you do the work that actually matters. The work that moves your life forward. The work that builds your future. Everything else, and I mean everything else, gets scheduled around this golden time. Emails can wait. Phone calls can wait. Social media can definitely wait. but your highest value work that gets your best hours. Here's another critical principle. Monotasking is the new intelligence. We live in a world that celebrates multitasking. I can do 5 things at once. People say this with pride, but neuroscience has proven beyond doubt that multitasking is a myth. Your brain doesn't do multiple things simultaneously. It switches rapidly between tasks, and every switch costs you. It costs you energy, it costs you focus, it costs you quality. There was a writer I studied. She would disconnect her internet every morning, completely disconnect it. No email, no messaging, no browsing. She would write for 4 hours straight, just write. Nothing else. In those 4 hours, she would produce more meaningful work than most writers produce in a month. Why? Because she had eliminated the switching cost. Her brain wasn't fragmenting its attention across multiple stimuli. It was channeling all its power into one direction. This is mastery. This is genius. Not because she was more talented than other writers, but because she was more disciplined with her attention. You cannot master time if you cannot master attention. And you cannot master attention in a world full of deliberate distractions unless you create boundaries, physical boundaries, digital boundaries, relational boundaries. I know this sounds extreme. In a hyper-connected world, the idea of disconnecting feels almost rebellious. But let me ask you, what has your constant connectivity produced? Are you more successful because you respond to every notification immediately? Are you more fulfilled because you know what everyone is doing at every moment? Are you more productive because you're always available? Or are you just more anxious, more scattered, more exhausted? The truth is, most of the things demanding your attention right now are not urgent. They are just loud. And we've been conditioned to respond to volume rather than value. This is why people spend hours on things that don't matter and then say they don't have time for things that do. Let me give you a framework that changed everything for me. Every task falls into one of 4 categories: important and urgent. Important but not urgent. Urgent but not important. Neither urgent nor important. Most people spend their lives bouncing between urgent tasks, whether they are important or not, because urgency creates a psychological pressure that feels like productivity. But here's the secret that transformed my life and the lives of everyone I've shared it with. The most valuable work you will ever do falls into the second category: important but not urgent. This is where you build skills. This is where you develop relationships. This is where you invest in your health. This is where you create systems. This is where you plan. This is where you think deeply. These activities never scream at you. They never create immediate pressure. They quietly wait. And if you're not intentional, you will spend your entire life reacting to urgent matters while neglecting the important ones. And then one day you wake up and realize you've been busy for decades, but you haven't actually built anything. There's a businessman I respect deeply, built multiple successful enterprises. When I asked him the secret to his success, he said something I'll never forget. I spend 1 hour every day working on things that won't pay off for 5 years. 1 hour every single day. Not on immediate fires, not on this quarter's goals, on things that wouldn't show results for half a decade. This is long-term thinking. This is mastery. And this is why when I met him, he was operating at a level that most people never reach, because most people never plant seeds that take years to grow. You see, genius is not about intensity. It's about consistency over time. It's about doing the right things repeatedly until they compound into something extraordinary. Now, I need to address something that might be holding you back. You might be thinking, I understand all this. It makes sense. But I can't seem to do it. I start well, but I don't. Sustain. This is not a willpower problem. This is a design problem. You're trying to rely on motivation and discipline alone, and these are finite resources. They run out. What you need is not more willpower. What you need is better systems. Let me tell you about a scientist who transformed his productivity. He was struggling with the same issue, knowing what to do, but not doing it consistently. So he created what he called environmental design. He removed every distraction from his workspace. Every single one. No phone, no internet connection, no clutter, just his work materials. But here's the genius part. He made it harder to be distracted than to work. He would give his phone to his assistant with instructions not to return it. Until 1 p.m., he would use software that blocked all websites during work hours. He would work in a location where he literally couldn't access distractions, even if he wanted to. He didn't rely on his willpower to resist temptation. He removed temptation entirely. And his productivity didn't just increase, it exploded. He published more research in 3 years than he had in the previous 10. This is wisdom. You don't win battles against your lower nature by fighting harder. You win by changing the battlefield. What are the environmental cues in your life that trigger time-wasting behavior? What are the structures that make distraction easy and focus hard? Identify them and systematically eliminate them. Make the right choices automatic and the wrong choices difficult. Your phone is probably your biggest enemy. I know this is uncomfortable to hear, but it's true. That device in your pocket is engineered by the smartest people in the world with one goal: to capture and hold your attention. Every app is designed to be addictive. Every notification is designed to interrupt. Every algorithm is designed to keep you scrolling. And you think you're going to win that battle with willpower alone? You won't. So change the rules. Delete the apps that waste your time. Turn off all notifications except the absolute essentials. Put the phone in a different room when you're working. Treat it like the attention-stealing device it is, and protect yourself accordingly. I promise you, if you do this for just 1 week, you will be shocked at how much time you reclaim. Time you didn't even know you were losing. Now, let me take you into something that will separate you from 95% of people who hear this message. It's one thing to manage your hours. It's another thing entirely to multiply them. And multiplication happens through something most people never consider: the power of predecisions. There's a concept I want you to engrave into your consciousness. Every decision you make costs energy. Not just the big decisions, the small ones too. What to wear, what to eat, when to start working, which task to tackle first. By the time most people begin their actual work, they've already made dozens of micro decisions, and their mental energy is depleted before they've accomplished anything significant. I studied a CEO who built a company from nothing to a valuation of over 2 billion. When I spent time observing him, I noticed something peculiar. He wore the same style of clothes every day. Black shirt, gray pants, same breakfast every morning, same workout routine, same time for checking emails, same structure for meetings. At first, I thought this was eccentricity. But when I asked him about it, he said something that shifted my entire paradigm. I have thousands of decisions to make that actually matter. I refuse to waste my decision-making energy on things that don't. So he automated everything that didn't require creative thought or strategic consideration. His mornings ran on autopilot. This freed his mind to focus on the decisions that will actually build his company. This is what I'm telling you. You need to create systems that remove decision fatigue from your life. Plan your week on Sunday. Decide what you eat for the week and prepare it. Lay out your clothes the night before. Create a morning routine that requires zero thought. Build a work sequence that you follow automatically. Some of you are resisting this, but I like spontaneity. I don't want to be a robot. Let me tell you something directly. Poverty of time and poverty of money often come from the same source: a lack of structure. You think freedom is doing whatever you feel like in the moment, but that's not freedom. That's slavery to your emotions, which change like the wind. True freedom comes from discipline that creates margin, discipline that creates options, discipline that creates outcomes you actually want. There was a young architect I mentored, incredibly talented, could visualize buildings in her mind that would take your breath away, but she was perpetually behind on deadlines, perpetually stressed, perpetually disappointing clients. When I examined her work patterns, the problem was obvious. She was redesigning her process every single day. One day she started with sketches, next day with digital models, next day with research. She had no system. Every project felt like she was starting from zero. I told her, create a methodology and follow it religiously. She resisted at first, felt it would limit her creativity. But I pushed her to try it for just 1 month. Map out exactly how you approach every project. Research phase, 2 days. Concept sketches, 1 day. Client feedback, half day. Revision, 1 day. Detailed drawings, 3 days. Make it a formula. The transformation was remarkable. Not only did her productivity triple, but her creativity actually increased. Why? Because she wasn't wasting mental energy figuring out what to do next. She was channeling all her creative power into the actual work. Within 6 months, she had completed more projects than in the previous 2 years. Within a year, she had a waiting list of clients. The system didn't constrain her genius, it unleashed it. This is what people don't understand. Structure doesn't kill creativity, it liberates it. When your process is automatic, your mind is free to focus on what actually matters. Now, I want to address something that's probably sabotaging your time more than anything else. The inability to say no. You cannot master your 24 hours if you allow other people to determine how you spend them. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your priorities, you're saying no to something that does. There's a physician I know, one of the most accomplished in his field. Early in his career, he was drowning, serving on committees, attending every conference, saying yes to every opportunity, teaching extra courses. His research suffered, his family suffered, his health suffered. Then he had a breakdown, literally collapsed from exhaustion. And in that moment of forced stillness, he realized something. He was building everyone else's dream except his own. When he recovered, he made a radical change. He created what he called his one thing principle. Every opportunity that came his way, he would ask, does this directly contribute to my one thing? His one thing was advancing a specific area of medical research that he believed could save millions of lives. If an opportunity didn't serve that, he said no. Didn't matter how prestigious. Didn't matter how much it paid. Didn't matter who was asking. People thought he was crazy, arrogant even. But within 3 years, his focused research led to a breakthrough that changed treatment protocols worldwide. The opportunities he declined, they would have made him busier. The opportunity he protected, it made him legendary. You see, most people are afraid to say no because they're afraid of missing out. But what they don't realize is that by saying yes to everything, they are guaranteeing they will miss out on the thing that matters most, their own potential. Your time is the canvas on which your life is painted. Every yes is a brush stroke. And if you let everyone else hold the brush, you'll end up with a painting you don't recognize and a life you didn't choose. Let me give you a practical framework for this. Before you commit to anything, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this align with my long-term vision? Does this utilize my unique strengths? Will I be glad I did this 1 year from now? If the answer to all 3 is in yes, the answer is no. Not maybe, no. This will make you unpopular with some people. Good. The people who are upset that you won't waste your time for them are not people whose opinion should shape your life. The people who respect your boundaries will respect your success when it comes. Now, here's something that will accelerate your mastery beyond what you think is possible. The principle of batching. Most people scatter their activities throughout the day, constantly switching contexts. They check email in the morning, afternoon, evening. They take calls randomly throughout the day. They do administrative work whenever it pops up. This is devastatingly inefficient. Your brain operates best when it can stay in one mode for an extended period. There's a startup time for every type of activity. The time it takes your brain to fully engage with that kind of work. If you are constantly switching, you're constantly paying that startup cost. I learned this from a programmer who was achieving impossible deadlines. He would batch all his coding into specific blocks, all his meetings into 1 afternoon per week, all his email responses into 2 30-minute sessions per day, All his planning into Sunday evenings, he wasn't working more hours than his peers. He was getting 3 times the output because he eliminated the switching cost. Think about your typical week. How many times do you shift from one type of work to another? How much energy are you losing in those transitions? What if you batched similar activities together? All your calls in one block, all your creative work in one block, all your administrative tasks in one block, all your learning in one block. This requires planning. It requires coordination. It requires saying no to people who want you available at their convenience. But the productivity gains are staggering. You're not just saving time, you're multiplying effectiveness. There was a writer who adopted this approach. Instead of writing a little bit every day whenever she felt inspired, she batched her writing into intense 3-day periods once a month. During those 3 days, she would write for 10 to 12 hours a day, nothing else. The rest of the month, she would research, outline, edit, but not draft. People told her this was unsustainable, but she produced 4 books in 2 years. Books that each took other writers 2 years to complete. Why? Because when she wrote, she was fully immersed. Her mind stayed in creative flow for days, producing work at a depth and speed that scattered writing sessions could never match. This brings me to something critical. The difference between being busy and being productive. Our culture worships busyness. People wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor. I'm so busy, I barely sleep, I don't have time to eat, as if this is admirable. It's not. It's tragic. Busyness is often a form of laziness. It's easier to stay busy reacting to whatever demands your attention than to step back and ask what actually matters, what will move my life forward. Productivity isn't about doing more things. It's about doing the right things with focus and excellence. I want you to conduct an experiment. For 1 week, at the end of each day, write down everything you did. Not what you think you did, what you actually did. Account for every hour. Then, next to each activity, write whether it was essential, important, or filler. Essential. Things that directly advance your most important goals. Important things that maintain your life and relationships. Filler. Everything else. Most people discover that 60-70% of their time goes to filler. Activities that make them feel busy but don't actually create value. Scrolling. Unnecessary meetings. Conversations that go nowhere. Perfectionism on things that don't matter. Reorganizing things that don't need reorganizing. Once you see this in black and white, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you can start eliminating it. Ruthlessly. Not tomorrow. Today. Right now. Here's another layer to this mastery. Energy management. You cannot sustain excellence if you are depleting yourself. Your body is not a machine that runs indefinitely. It needs fuel, it needs rest, it needs movement. And yet, most people treat their bodies like an inconvenience to their ambitions. There's a performer I worked with, a musician who was at the top of his field, but he was headed for disaster, sleeping 4 hours a night, eating fast food between rehearsals, no exercise, living on caffeine and adrenaline. He thought he was being dedicated. He was actually being foolish. I sat him down and showed him the research. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired. It reduces cognitive function by up to 40%. It impairs decision making. It kills creativity. It weakens your immune system. It literally makes you stupid. And he was choosing this voluntarily because he thought sleeping was wasting time. I told him, you're not gaining time by sleeping less. You're losing effectiveness in the time you have. We restructured his schedule around 8 hours of sleep. Suddenly, his practice sessions became twice as productive. His performances improved. His composition work flowed. He wasn't working more hours. He was working better hours because his brain was actually functioning properly. This is non-negotiable. You must protect your sleep. You must fuel your body with real food, not chemicals and sugar. You must move your body regularly, not because it's virtuous, but because it's strategic. Your brain is part of your body, and if your body is depleted, your brain cannot perform. Let me also address something that's stealing hours from many of you: the need for constant stimulation. We've become so addicted to input that we cannot tolerate silence, cannot tolerate stillness, cannot tolerate being alone with our thoughts. The moment there's a gap, we reach for our phones. Standing in line, check the phone. Waiting for coffee, check the phone. Commercial break, check the phone. But here's what you're killing: the space where insights emerge. Creativity doesn't come from more input. It comes from processing the input you already have. Deep understanding doesn't come from consuming more content. It comes from reflecting on what you've already consumed. There was a mathematician who solved problems that had stumped experts for decades. When asked about his process, he said something profound. I don't think about the problems constantly. I think about them intensely, then I stop. I go for walks. I sit quietly. I let my subconscious work. This wasn't laziness. This was wisdom. His breakthroughs came not during his focus work sessions, but during the spaces between them when his mind could make connections without the pressure of active thinking. You need white space in your schedule. Actual blank time, not time that you fill with low value activities, time that you leave open, time for thinking, time for processing, time for insights to emerge. This feels wasteful to our productivity obsessed minds. But it's actually when the highest value work happens, the invisible work of synthesis and integration. As we come to the close of this message, I want to leave you with the most important principle of all: legacy thinking. Your 24 hours today are not just about today. They are building something that will outlast you. Every hour you invest wisely today is creating a future not just for yourself, but for everyone your life will touch. There's a teacher I knew who understood this deeply. She didn't just teach her students the curriculum. She invested extra hours unpaid, unrecognized, mentoring them, guiding them, believing in them when they didn't believe in themselves. Years later, those students became doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, leaders. They transformed their communities. They lifted their families out of poverty. They sent their own children to universities, and it all traced back to a teacher who gave hours that nobody was counting, building something she would never fully see. That's mastery. Not just mastering your hours for your own success, but mastering them for a purpose larger than yourself. So I'm asking you, what are you building with your 24 hours? In 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, what will exist because you stewarded your time wisely? Not just money, not just achievements, but impact, lives changed, problems solved, value created. This is not about becoming a workaholic. This is not about sacrificing relationships or health or joy. This is about being intentional. This is about understanding that time is your most precious resource, and how you spend it is how you spend your life. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting until you have more time. Stop waiting until life gets less complicated. It won't. Master the time you have right now, in the circumstances you're in right now, with the resources you have right now. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's how you're using your time. And if you change that, truly change it. Not just think about changing it, everything changes. Your 24 hours today will never come back. You can't bank them. You can't borrow them. You can only invest them or waste them. Choose investment. Choose mastery. Choose to live at a level that most people will never understand, because most people will never pay the price of discipline. But you are not most people. If you were, you wouldn't have stayed with this message until this point. You're someone who wants more, who knows you are capable of more, who's ready to stop making excuses and start making progress. So go, take these principles, apply them, not perfectly, just consistently. Start tomorrow morning. Actually start tonight by planning tomorrow, and watch what happens when you take control of what you've been allowing to control you. Your genius isn't missing. It's just been buried under wasted hours and scattered attention. Reclaim them, master them, and become who you were always meant to be.